G'day and welcome to the next episode of Tech Adept Crafts. I'd like to firstly give a shout out to Cloud Person, who guessed that there were actually 4 elves in the scene last week. If you don't know what I'm talking about, in the description I said look out for the elves. This week we are looking at crystals. Right back in the first episode I did hills and I had some crystals on one of the scenes. And I said I would get back to showing how to make them. Well, here we are. Big upgrade in the way that I'm painting the crystals. These ones were hand cut. These are these are hot wire cut. These ones are painted with a paintbrush. These ones are painted with an airbrush. The ones that we've got down the front here are actually painted by my son David. He painted these for Clash of the Titans. Well, he did this style, for Clash of the Titans 2 years ago, and so revisited that for this tutorial. Unfortunately, I didn't get to film him doing it, but you can see there it is all just hand brush, and it is getting roughly the same effect, but in a slightly different way, and I really like that one as well. Big upgrade. We go through how to do this one using the airbrush, and I also have just another variant using green instead of the blue, but love the blue looking crystals. It looks very otherworldly. The crystals are not on bases. You might notice that this is just, still sitting on the board. That is because these are going to be part of an ongoing video set. The culmination will be in a couple of videos time. There's a few more steps that I want to include, and it'll end up having the hills, the crystals, plaster casting, and then putting it all together into a final product. And I'll look at some extra techniques like flocking and things that can be done along that line. I'd like to say a thank you to David Bennett, who in the live show suggested I do some airbrushing, and I didn't think that I would at that point, but for the crystals I thought let's give that a try. So this is entirely new, the way that we're doing these crystals, and I have to say I am really loving the way that it's come out. Much better than this one, but you'll see the technique that we've used there, and it was a lot of fun. But again, a fairly lengthy process, but I think you'll agree that's going to look amazing when it's on the board and in little clumps of cluster crystals on the board. Anyway, enjoy the show. If you do like it, make sure that you hit that subscribe button, hit like, and leave a comment down the bottom. There may be some form of little hidden competition in the description at the end of this week's video as well, so make sure you do look at that as well. Anyway, thank you very much and enjoy the show. This is a brand new Proxon hot wire cutter. It's going at about 500% here, the video, so you can tell I'm actually traveling very slowly on the hot wire cutter just so that there is no warping of the cut. I am cutting 40mm foam, and I'm cutting it at a 50mm depth. Now moving to a 30mm depth. You can buy adapter pieces to go on the Proxon. I haven't got any of those yet, so I'm using the provided bar to do all of this. I'm marking on here my hexagonal grid for doing the crystals, and unfortunately I did do this slightly a bit backwards. I need a flat edge from which to slide the piece, so I had to do that again. And the bars were also too large to fit underneath the bar of the hot wire cutter. So after having measured it out, I then had to go back and do it all again. This is the first time I've used a hot wire cutter in many years. So this is all very new, as is a lot of the things that I do. Never hold back. If you're going to try something, try it, have fun, learn something new. As you can see, I'm zooming in here so you can see as I cut the top of the crystal, I'm holding that flat against the bar to then cut those angles and just line it up with where the previous cut had gone. Top of the crystal does not need to be perfect. They'll all have various different different facets in them, and that's fine. Now showing you cutting by hand. This doesn't turn out anywhere near as nice, but it's still something that you can do. I made the mistake here of not using a sharp enough knife, which you'll see really made it a bit of a struggle to actually cut this foam. You can see there that this crystal is very, very rough. You can give that a sand if you've used some sandpaper, but I know which one I think looks better. Next step in this process, painting these crystals with Mod Podge. It seals the foam, allows it to take the paint a little easier. I'm putting skewers in underneath. That's going to be for holding them as I'm painting. Brush the Mod Podge straight on and keep your strokes the same direction, as it'll help to create an even texture on the crystal. There you have the set of crystals ready for painting, all done up with Mod Podge. They're on their skewers and on the board for easy movement. Select out your colors. I'm doing blue. This is a marine blue, an ultramarine, a sky blue, and a mist blue. I didn't end up keeping the marine blue, but here it is going onto the crystals. You can see how that is going. You can see that it's not quite as even in the end as what I would like it to be. And next I try the ultramarine blue onto a different crystal. Neither one of them really gives an even covering, so I do try an alternative method here. Big thank you to my colleague Eddie Wu, who has lent me a beautiful microphone that I'm using to do my voiceovers, and he also lent me a lighting box, which you will see makes a massive difference to the filming in a little while when that gets set up and turned on. So thank you very much, Eddie, for the loan of those tools. Take 3. I've now sprayed these with a blue from Army Painter, and that I think is going to give me a much cleaner starting point. The ultramarine blue is going to be painted over the top of that, and that really just gives me a nice even coat to start with. I've never painted crystals with the airbrush, but this should be fun. So you can see that I've got my airbrush in its holding pot. I've got a pot of water for cleaning and a pot of water for mixing. Keep those separate so that you have clean water. My brushes for cleaning out the airbrush, a syringe for adding the water into the pot, and we're ready to go. I've got my cleaning and my thinning pots for mixing with the paint or cleaning out the brush. There we go. I always put a bit of water in first, then put the paint, just so that the paint is not going to clog the bottom. Some thinner, mix that all about with a brush and some extra water till you get a nice consistency that will not clog your airbrush. Test it out on the paper as well, and just make sure that things are flowing smoothly. I did 2 test models, one where I highlighted down through the middle of each side, and one where I did the edges. And we had a debate at home as to which one looked better, and we decided that the one along the edges, this one right now, is the one that looks better. After deciding which one we're going to do, I've added more to those sides and made it a bit more pronounced. The technique I'm using, I do get better at using it. At the beginning here, it's not the best, but I make it more pronounced on that angular side, and I think that looks better in the end. So you can see that at the beginning of that angled side, but it does get better as I go. Adding the extra layer of highlight, this is now the mist blue. The last one was that sky blue. And I'll go down the edges and add into the top corner of each panel, and along the top I do the edges, leaving sort of a little bit of the slightly darker point in the middle. Here's another one that I'm doing, and you can see in this one the technique is getting a lot stronger. I do the edges first and then turn the thing side on to go at an angle, and that gives me a much better coverage. The axiom less is more really applies here with airbrushing. You can always add more paint, but starting with a very thin flow to the brush works very well to build up from. Crystals done. We're now going to take 3 and do a green. So this is that moss green that I've painted on the trees before, and I'm painting this straight over, which again doesn't give me that nice clean coverage. But I use this as a base coat this time because I don't have a green spray with me at the moment. So I do this green and then I airbrush the green over the top. Now I have a nice even coat. The other added benefit is that the airbrush will then smooth out that covering. Trying to decide if I want to use a light green or a yellowy green or a bluey green for doing the highlighting, and the white green one out. I am using there a Model Air pale green as the mid-tone. Later for the top tone I use that pale green and some white. There you have it, the airbrushed crystals, and this is the paintbrush crystals. Much improved technique from the original crystals. Hope that you enjoyed that tutorial and that you learned something about airbrushing, about using a hot wire cutter and about creating crystals. You can do them all by hand. You can paint this all by hand. This is just a quicker and less messy way of doing it, or less messy way of cutting them out, and I think that the end result is far superior to when you cut them out by hand. But obviously, if you don't have access to a hot wire cutter, this is as good as you will get, and that's perfectly fine. Right, if you enjoyed that, make sure that you hit like, hit subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next video. Don't forget to read the description for that little challenge. See you later.